Well, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Daren Limas. For any of you that don't know me, I oversee our go-to-market at Nostra. Quick thanks to Abhi and Rohan and the rest of the people putting on the conference. Great turnout. So, real quick for me, on my side, anybody that doesn't know what Nostra does, we're enterprise-grade infrastructure that essentially gives you headless-like speed, if you will, without the cost of build and maintenance. For those of you familiar with headless sites, nothing against them. Headless is good, but we essentially provide that. In turn, it reduces latency pretty dramatically, helps core web vitals, helps boost quality scores, lower cost per clicks, and of course, all the good stuff on the rev side. Increased conversion rates, AOV, revenue per session. We all know Nik. He's been up here, what, 3 times? Is this your third?
Once.
Okay, so, unless you got more to tell us, I'm going to hand it to Sarina to introduce herself, and then we'll get things underway.
Thanks, Daren. I'm Sarina. I'm the Senior Director of Performance Marketing at VEGAMOUR. I oversee all of our performance media. I help out with our CRM, our e-com site, and then I also run our Amazon business. I know it's a little weird. I work in startup life, so a couple different hats. But background is primarily in performance acquisition. Come from a fashion background and love the beauty space a lot. Sorry for all you fashion people, but I do love being in the beauty space. Excited to be here.
Amazing. Nik, anything else maybe you forgot to talk about and about yourself that you want to tell everybody for your third panel?
I feel like most people know me from Twitter or a newsletter or a podcast, but my actual job is running an agency called Sharma Brands. So we are mainly a performance-driven agency for the brands that your girlfriends or wives or you may love, companies like Hexclad, Rare Beauty, Feastables, Chamberlain Coffee, etc.
Awesome. Well, cool. Like the title says, we're here to talk about optimizing digital experience, of course, from ad to purchase. A lot of what Nostra does is site speed oriented, so we thought it'd be a great subject for both Nik and Sarina to cover. Generally, I just wanted to have a conversation and first and foremost, open it up to how you guys view digital experience in general. I know that both of you are across many different channels, whether it's omni-channel, whether it's, as you said, Amazon versus D2C. So I'm curious how you view the digital experience, which is a huge general question, but from a consumer standpoint and the way that you kind of view your game plan. Sarina, how do you go on digital experience?
I'd say for us at VEGAMOUR, and for me personally, it's identifying what is different about the customer for each of the sales channels. So example being at Amazon, it's immediacy, right? They really want the product now and getting it through Prime, potentially pricing, depends on your product. But obviously they're looking to compare prices on Amazon. On our D2C, it's retention. So how do we give them the best opportunities on our website to keep them? What are we gonna offer them that is very different, right? Or what kind of perks can they get? And that's also how we're gonna acquire them differently and what kind of dollars we're gonna spend on our media, what kind of strategies or offers and tactics we wanna put out there to get them the right person, and also use algorithms to understand who are the right people that these creatives should be serving and driving them to the right sales channel. Sephora included, even brick and mortar events. So.
Yeah, for us, I always think of it, I have this acronym called TRACE that I like to reference, which is basically technology, reporting, audience, creative, and experience. Technology is basically any tech, in this case Nostra, that we would use to support the marketing, but the experience part is what you're talking about, and I think that entails everything from the customer journey. I always think of it as like if somebody, if you walk into a Everlane or Quiana store in New York, they look at you up and down and they go, all right, I know exactly the route to take you in the store. And that's how I try to think of site experiences as well, is how do you bring somebody into your store and kind of walk them through, whether it's the first time they're there or the third time they're there. Maybe they know what they want, maybe they don't know what they want, maybe they don't even know why they're there. But yeah, site experience is everything from speed optimization to, like you were saying, merchandising and offers is the biggest lever when it comes to your ads. If your site converts double of what it was doing yesterday, your CPA is cut in half. And so it's a huge lever that I think a lot of people don't tend to touch. I'm
going to add to that too. I think what you said is really great, and something I tell my team a lot is don't forget your product pages. That's your sales manager, like in a store, right? That's the person who's looking at you up and down to tell you, like, to walk you around, like your descriptions, your bullet points, like that's your opportunity to sell them, right? That is your personal shopper if you're in fashion, right? To give you and sell you on that product. And looking at this streamline sometimes between the creatives is super important. So for us at VEGAMOUR, we have a demo primarily of women that's really 25 plus. So if I'm bringing somebody in and I'm showing you pictures of somebody who's 25 and you're 55, it's probably not going to resonate with you. So it's really important that you also have that dynamic ability to make sure your pages speak to the streamline that you brought them in. That will help your conversion rate for sure. And yes, we also use Nostra, and we've seen a big difference, especially with our younger demo, on when the site is faster with our bounce rates in particular, or you lose them to begin with, right? The minute that they bounce, they're gone. So if you can keep them for a second longer, you have an opportunity to sell them.
Yeah, and I think taking it back to, we're kind of like a little bit of the mid-funnel, making it a product pages, but taking it about a little bit more to the top funnel. What channels and strategies for you all are working? And then within those channels, what are you seeing the most ROI out of? And then is there any surprises maybe on the channels that you've tested?
You want to take it first?
Sure. One thing obviously there's, Meta and TV and all the channels that you can use that are maybe more reserved for upper funnel strategies that exist. But I'll tell you what has actually worked well is when you couple all of the stuff you would normally do. So the normal Meta ads or, whatever ads you're running, you couple that with niche influencers who have big followings. Think Melissa Wood Health or The Skinny Confidential, or these niche audiences that exist that have high overlap with your brand. That just drops your CPM on your paid channels, which is, I think, the most effective way to do top of funnel. Is not necessarily how are you getting small spurts, which are also beneficial, but how do you do something that then drops the CPM when it comes to your paid ads? That's also the biggest benefit of celebrity brands, is not necessarily their own Instagram account, but the awareness they can drive that then cuts your CPM from $35 to $16 to allow you to spend more efficiently.
Yeah, I think people don't really realize the value of what I call branding response in a sense these days, which is you do need to invest in your brand awareness. You do need that very top of funnel, whether it is TV, we do a lot of podcasts as well, but looking at the 360, how do you connect the dots? So specifically for us, I look at it as podcast and social. So who has great social following and hosts a podcast, right? Is it better on their personal social page or their podcast social page? So we can do more than one drop, right? A quarter, a month, and have two components with the same person where they are influential. And I think that's also really important, is don't try to conquer the world with one influencer or one celebrity. If they're really popular on TikTok, focus on TikTok with that person. Don't try to focus on TikTok and Instagram and Meta and YouTube. Like really go after the influencer where they're influential. It will resonate a lot more with their audience as well. And I think just giving them the opportunity to push what they like, how they like to their audience, and making sure it's going to resonate.
I want to touch on a question that's a little off what we talked about in terms of questions, but I was actually listening to Nik and Moy's podcast this morning on the way here. Shout out to Limited Supply. You guys should listen to it if you don't. It was really interesting. It was talking about Meta. I'm sure you guys have felt the fluctuation in the past month, Advanced Plus shopping campaigns, etc. But the one thing that I was really honing in on was the creative aspect and kind of almost the top of the bottom of the funnel disappearing, if you will, right? They're just kind of like, give me your creative and let us do what we do. So I'm really interested in that sense of the way Meta is shifting. Do you look at creative specifically for Meta? Or are you still looking at your creative in general for like your website and different channels? Like, how do you view your creative and, with the ever-changing landscape, I guess you could say?
I'm passionate, so I'll take this one first. I think for us, we were actually talking about this right before we came up here, is building a performance creative team really changed the game for us, and we didn't even know advanced and shopping campaigns were coming out when we kind of leaned into this. But having somebody who really understands the data behind the creative and understanding what you put in the creative matters. So with their AI, I love it, because you don't need 1,500 campaigns. You can have like 5 or 10, depending on your scale. And it's the way that you structure your campaigns, whether it's by landing page or KPI potentially, and then that's the creative you load in. So you can really control, right, what creative brings you what movement in your KPI. And I actually think that that is really powerful. I think almost 80% of our account for the last 7 months has been ASC. Actually, the only thing we don't do is ASC and catalog, because we have such a small catalog that those canvas-looking campaigns just don't look that nice for us. They look more stale than our ads do. And I think the biggest part of that AI is letting it actually balance more than one creative, because it does, and it didn't used to. And I think that leaning into that is better, gives you a much bigger scale, especially if you have large budgets. And I think the days of sort of honing in on one niche audience by targeting makes it really expensive, when you are better off putting the person or the visual clearly in your creative. The algorithm will see that. Don't make it small, make it big. If you want to talk about postpartum, put kids in the ad. That means that they have children, right? If you don't have kids in there, just saying motherhood or I'm a mom is not the same for an algorithm in differentiation. So really making sure it's differentiated. And I don't think it's just Meta. I think it's actually spanning across a lot more, and you see it in your search results. You see what people are starting to look for in non-brand search as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Facebook only leverages about 5% or less of its information to run its ad targeting. And if you've ever opened Instagram on your computer and had shitty internet, you'll see that it actually doesn't load the image, but it'll write a little description of the image. Like it'll show woman in red shirt with flowers. And that's that 5% of what it actually knows of that image. And so tying that back to what Sarina was saying, like, creative can be your targeting. It pretty much is the targeting now. And it's great from a standpoint that, whatever you want to target, it's actually pretty easy. You just put it in the creative. But the other thing I think, going back to your question, is it really has to be full funnel friendly. Like the whole upper, middle, lower funnel is something from the 1890s, I think, which just doesn't apply anymore. And I think that good creative works whether somebody's seeing the brand for the first time and doesn't have any idea what it's about or what their benefits are going to be or when they're going to get the product, et cetera. But it also works for somebody who knows everything about the brand and is ready to make a purchase. And the same thing goes for the page they drive to. If it's a landing page, I always have this rule that, long landing pages they're not a bad thing, because if somebody doesn't feel educated, they'll just keep scrolling. But if somebody does feel ready to go, they'll go at the next CTA. Same thing I think goes for product pages, especially with the rise of catalog ads and shopping links from YouTube and whatnot going straight to product pages. You sort of have to have the same game where you need to be able to educate somebody in a full funnel capacity, whether they know everything about the She's Birdie product and they're ready to buy it, or they have no idea about it and they're looking at this crazy gym bag from Haven, but they got to figure out how exactly it fits into their life and how to justify the price point. But I do think that, if you go to sharmabrands.com/reel, R-E-E-L, you can see some examples of full funnel creative. But you'll see that it is very benefits driven, very focused on the outcome for the viewer at the end. And then creative has one goal, which is just the click. Your goal is not to sell with creative. Your goal is just to get the click, and then your site or wherever you're driving to has to then carry the torch.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that too, I'll say, you said it really well as far as the funnels being, they're not linear anymore. They're actually, an infinite loop of consideration, awareness, and conversion, right? And driving that. And I think there's so many brands you're exposed to in so many ways. You don't even remember what they are until you see the ad again. And you're like, oh yeah, Brands, right? I forgot about that brand. And then you might search for it on Amazon or Google, or, you might look for it at a, Bloomingdale's if it's, fashion or things like that. You're beginning to look in more places than just one search engine too. And that also is being seen in these funnels, right? So what is influencing each other? I think it's how you are, what is the consistent and what is the different messaging with your channels? So, for instance, podcast, my scripts and podcasts and things can't be completely unrelated to what I'm trying to push my brand in a creative sense, right? Because if they're hearing it there and they're seeing it here, there has to be some thread that's consistent. That doesn't mean there's kids in every ad, because not everyone's a new mom, and that's not the campaign, but there has to be some sort of consistency.
Love it. Kind of going past the creative, we've touched on product pages, and for us at Nostra, speed is kind of the way we view it as foundational in customer experience, right? I've always said you could have a really slow site and the best landing page ever, they're probably not going to make it there, right? Or you could have a really fast site and a really crappy landing page, who knows? So I'm curious in terms of your side, your knowledge, when it comes to product pages, what do you look at from a consumer experience standpoint? Is there kind of a baseline model that you use for all landing pages? Is it different per channel? Just curious on that front.
I generally run through a couple of checklists in my head. One is I just ask a few questions over and over and over again, which is, what is the product? Why does it exist? What benefits does the customer get? If I order today, how fast does it arrive at my door? And how does it compare to the competitors in, selling the same product? I think good landing pages just answer those 5 questions over and over and over again. Then, of course, you sprinkle in things like, good copywriting or social proof or good content. But I think every page on the site should do that. The best product pages, like if you go to Seed's website, their homepage is a joke, but then you go on their actual product page, that's just a landing page that they've fully optimized over the last few years.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's core components, and I think site speed is, like I said, if they don't even get the page to load, they're not staying, for sure. But I think also there's, those questions definitely have to be answered. I think above the fold, what's there, right? I think that's a 101 that's not going away, right? If above the fold looks completely unrelated, sounds weird, you're probably not going to step 2, right? Or even scrolling down, so then you don't even want to answer those questions. So making sure that they still want those questions answered, I think at the top is sort of what I call the teaser trailer effect, right? Your ad is your teaser, and then you've got to go into your full trailer, right, before you hit them with the movie.
Yeah, I think I saw a fact today that was, I'm sure all of you know, obviously we're super mobile-centric, mobile-heavy on everything that we do, but there's something along the lines of like, on the mobile side, anything that's above 3 seconds, you're getting a 53% drop rate, regardless. So obviously very important on those aspects when it comes to speed.
Also, not to mention, Facebook and Google measure that. They measure how fast somebody comes back to the app's main experience from a page not loading, and that's what jacks up CPMs. And
so does Google.
Yep.
Google, YouTube, they all actually look at that, especially if you're using Google Analytics. They have those factors, even though it's not an in-app load like it is for Meta.
I'm curious, we're talking about a bunch of different channels. If you all have a foundational strategy that pertains to the channels, like I do, for every single brand that maybe for you, Sharma, every single brand I work with, I'll typically do 70% Meta, like 20% TikTok, or is that out the door and it's more of like a percentage of budget is towards testing and the rest is more in the foundational channels that I run?
I would say generally it's majority Meta. I think 70 Meta, 20 Google, 10 whatever. But there are anomalies. Like depending on the type of brand, there's definitely anomalies. We tend to work with a lot of celebrity-driven brands, and so a lot of their budget actually goes towards creators versus Facebook, sometimes up to 50%. But yeah, generally for the average person, I'd say 70, 20, 10 is probably fair.
I think you bring up a good point that even TikTok, Meta, YouTube, all 3 of these channels, even Amazon influencers, right? They cost a lot of money. People, I think, book them to P&L sometimes in creative, but I think you're absolutely right. They should be booked to where they are mostly used and a part of your media spend, right? And I think that allows you to optimize it better and still spend on them better too. Otherwise, your teams don't have any money in your brand side usually. But they power your creative, right? So I agree with that. I think a lot of our funds go into the content that is made and the selections for those platforms. For VEGAMOUR, it is a little different. We actually have about 60 or 50 to 60% Meta, and we have about 20% TikTok, and then a lot of YouTube as well. So it's really interesting. We consider YouTube part of our paid search because it funnels a lot of the paid search as well. So we kind of balance that, and we see those ebb and flows when we invest somewhere. We see obviously non-brand or YouTube pick up, and so we'll kind of fuel it where we see it being fueled. We'll all see what happens with the TikTok ban. Who knows? So we'll see. But I think it depends on your brand. And personally, TikTok is really great for Amazon. So you see the two of them are super connected.
I feel like this goes against a question I should ask, given that we're focusing on Nostra and conversion and everything else, but it's honestly for the audience. Like, I'm curious, just we're talking about add to purchase, right? I'm curious if there's any other applications that you've used, any new tools, et cetera, that have helped you actually get to purchase.
I mean, I think for me, and I'll probably be antiquated when I say these things, but the Shop app makes it really easy, quite frankly, especially with tracking, although it seems to think something is still being delivered to me for 3 months, so I don't know why it has that problem.
Same, yeah.
But one thing, and it was like my food delivery, and I don't even know how it got in there from Uber, but okay. But I do think that was helpful. I think it's annoying that they keep telling me I have $3 to spend because there's nothing that I can buy with $3. But I do think they're trying to make that more value-centric for the customer. I think just giving payment options is extremely important. We see that for us, we have a subscription part of our business. Right now, because we're not on Shopify payments for subscription, we cannot use Apple Pay there. So we've seen that as a big drop in our subscription. So I think there is something about making it easy to pull that trigger when you're ready, even if it's buy with Prime.
Yeah, I don't want to shill much software here, but the one that I will say has been pretty surprising is like cashback. I was very anti-cashback because I thought rebates are stupid in 2007, but they work really well, especially for consumables.
Nice. How are we doing on time, Ron?
Wait,
Yeah,
can we just re-explain Nostra? Is that okay?
Yeah. So
let
anybody that's actually interested. So we do site speed, right? So we do site speed. It is server-side optimization. Obviously, you guys understand speed to be most of the time client-side, JavaScript, images, all of that fun stuff. We're server-side. We provide infrastructure. We just make it very, very quick in terms of your time to first byte or initial page load time. We can get that sub 100 milliseconds that has a waterfall effect to your complete page load time. So homepage is important, obviously, but more so collections pages, product descriptions pages, where you're actually sending your paid acquisition traffic, then you're trying to capture a consumer. As Sharma said, we actually do partner with Meta and Google simply because we boost quality scores and algorithmic placements. With that comes lowering cost per clicks. And then of course, if you guys, like every brand that we work with, want to understand incremental lift in terms of actual revenue, what's the conversion rate lift, singular to Nostra's tool, we can easily do split tests and prove that as well. We just did it with VEGAMOUR, popped you guys up. I won't give away numbers, but it was a healthy amount, and they are happy, if you will. Every brand that Sharma's mentioned up here we work with as well, so happy to provide more information. Apparently I didn't do a good job of selling Nostra, which I usually don't in these situations. I just rather like to meet people. But yes, if you're interested, I'm around. Case as well is around back there. If there's any questions, happy to answer, either if it's directed to site speed or, a couple knowledgeable people up here. So.
By the way, Nostra is one of the only plug and play for real. Even my developer will tell you that. It's very easy to plug and play.
Takes 15 minutes. Any questions? Awesome. Hope everyone enjoys the day.
Thanks.